Good morning, friends. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Arlie if you're new here, and we're going to be in the kitchen today experimenting and trying new things, and I would really love it if you all would join me. So friends, a lot of you have seen my other video. Thank you so much. I do appreciate all the love and support and comments. I really genuinely do. But I want to say thank you for all of that. But a lot of you have seen my video for the instant sourdough bread loaf, right? Let me just set my coffee down. And it's a great video, and it's a great option for someone who wants just kind of like that little bit of sourdough flavor, like kind of like a hint of sourdough, but you don't have the time to have a starter going. Like you just want something quick. It's just a really good option, right? And I'll link that video down below if you haven't seen it. Check it out. Excuse me, it's just an option. But today I wanted to show you guys how I make my starter from scratch, 100%. And then I'm gonna use that starter at the end of the video to make a beautiful loaf of sourdough. Also, I don't have a million supplies. I don't have one of those beautiful Danish bread whisks and a bowl to like put it into so that it ferments. I don't have any of that. So I'm also not going to spend the money on it. I'm just not going to do that. I don't think that we really need to. If you have it, oh my God, wonderful. But I also want to show that you can still make something that's really great for you and for your family without spending a whole ton of money on special supplies. So let's get into it. We're going to get started on making that sourdough starter right now.
Friends, we're going to start by combining 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour or bread flour, whichever one you want to use, with 1/4 cup of water. If you weigh this out on a scale, you would be using around 100 grams each of flour and water. You're going to want to mix that until it resembles pancake batter. The next day, you're going to take that same jar, you're going to toss out half of that starter mix. That's your discard. You're going to throw that out. You're not going to use that right now. And you're going to do the same thing again. Add 1/4 cup of flour, 1/4 cup of water, and mix until it looks like a pancake dough. And you're going to continue to do that for about 7 days. Every day, covering it, putting a rubber band around the top. I use a coffee filter to cover it just to make sure that nothing gets in there, but it can still breathe because you are starting to create a live yeast. That's what the purpose of this is. That's what your sourdough starter is creating your own personal strain of yeast. So you're going to continue to do that. Noticing every day, you're going to be smelling it, making sure that it doesn't smell rancid or bad, that it smells essentially like a yeasty dough. And doing the same thing, discarding half, adding flour and water in the same increments, scraping the sides, making sure you're incorporating it, and then leaving it out. I do this every morning while my coffee is brewing.
Friends, so these are the ingredients that we're going to need to make our sourdough loaf. I have some all-purpose flour. You are welcome to use whole wheat flour to start this whole process, like I mentioned before, or you know, there's some people make it with rye. Some people will use bread flour to start it. There's all different kinds. Do the research. The one that is best for you is the one that I recommend. I tend to use all-purpose for everything because it's in the name. It's all-purpose flour. So I have my all-purpose flour. I have 2 cups. I'm not going to use the full 2 cups, but just in case, because humidity does affect our end product. So I always do a little bit more than the recipe calls for. Recipe calls for 1.5 cups. I'm going to be, I have 2 cups ready here, and I have it just under 100 degrees. It's at 95.3. I don't know if you guys can see that there, but I'm at like 95, 97 degrees, around there. Just about 100 degrees is what we're looking for. And I have my starter. Look at her ready to go. She's so bubbly and beautiful. Let me uncover that. This jar is a mess, but whatever. That's what it's supposed to look like. Here we go. Look at all those bubbles. So I fed this morning at around 6 a.m. It is now 10:30, so it's been sitting there for about 4 hours getting good and bubbly, and she's ready to use. And I also have, sorry, I did forget to mention it, some salt. We're gonna need a tiny bit of salt. So let's get started. I'm gonna put my bowl on a scale, and we are going to be doing all of this by weight. Let me get that set to grams. Here we go. Let me adjust real quick. There we go. There we go. So we are zeroed out. Now I'm not making 2, 3, 4 loaves. I'm just going to make one smaller loaf. And we're going to start with 60 grams of my starter. $62, close enough. Okay, let's cover her up. And y'all, I need to name this starter. Everybody names their starter because it's alive. So I'm gonna be asking, right in the comments, let me know a good name for the sourdough starter. Okay, so we've got that in there. I'm gonna zero it out again. There we go. We're gonna add 100 grams of water. Oh no, I'm sorry, 350 grams of water, my goodness. I don't know where I got 100 grams from. I have no idea where I got 100 from, but roughly cup and a half, cup and a third, around there. Okay. Now I just grab a fork and I just dissolve that starter into this warm water. There we go. I have no idea where I got 100 from. Okay, zeroed out one more time. We're gonna go in with our flour now, and we're gonna wanna add 500 grams of flour. That's gonna be roughly 4 cups, 4 1/4. Okay. Here we go, 503, close enough. And then we're gonna zero that out one more time. Nine grams of a fine salt, which should be about 1.5 teaspoons. Close enough. Okay, so now I'm just going to remove the scale, and then just using good clean hands, we're going to go in there and make this just kind of like a shaggy ball. You just want to make sure that this flour has incorporated all of the liquid. We just kind of want like a rough, ragged ball right now. I think I'm gonna add like maybe like a tablespoon of flour. It is just a little bit dry. I mean, just a little bit wet. Wow, I'm doing great today. This bread loaf is gonna come out spectacular. perfect. It's nice and sticky. Okay, so I am just moistening up this towel. Okay, so we're gonna take this wet towel and we're gonna drape it over the top just to make sure that the moisture stays in. And I'm gonna set this on the back side of the counter here, and we're gonna let that sit for an hour, and then we'll begin our stretches and our folds. All right, friends, so our dough has been sitting for about an hour, and now I have a little ramekin with water. We're gonna start our stretches and our folds. So I'm just gonna like lightly moisten my hand just to keep this from sticking as best as possible. And as you can see, this dough is, it's really ragged. So what we're doing is by stretching and folding like so, just picking it up, stretching it, folding it over, is creating our gluten. Now I'm not going to throw this out on the counter and knead it, because it's a little different. Sourdough works a little bit different. It's more about fermenting the food and slowly building up that gluten. So we're going to do this just a few times going around the bowl. Some people will only do it like once or twice. I just prefer to get this going. And see, by moistening my hand, it's not really sticking to me. It's becoming a little bit looser, and the ball itself is coming together just a little bit more. Awesome. So one more time. Okay. There we go. So we're going to cover this back up, and we'll be back to do it again in about an hour. Okay, friends, so we're going to do this one more time. Look at how beautiful this dough is. So we're just going to stretch it and tuck it under like that. Stretch. This is a total of 3 times that we're doing these stretches. I'm not letting the dough tear. I'm going to place it seam side down in here. Now we're going to leave it on the counter for 4 hours. Now, if you wanted this bulk ferment to work for the morning, it could be a next day loaf, and you would be doing that overnight in the refrigerator, or if it's cold in your house, you could leave it on the counter and allow it to ferment for 8 to 12 hours. My recipe, I'm going to do it for 4 hours on the counter at room temperature. Let that ferment, and we'll come back and we'll check it out. All right, friends, so we've got our dough is here. It's beautiful. Just trying to pull it out of there real quick so we can shape it. Okay, friends, so we're gonna work with this dough now to just kind of shape it, and need to add a tiny bit of flour, like just a tiniest little bit, into my hands here. So like I said, I'm not going to use any special ingredients here. All I'm doing now is just doing some, oh, I folded that wrong. That's okay. This dough is so forgiving. So we're just folding kind of like in thirds here. You just kind of stretching and folding, stretching and folding into thirds like that. See, till we end up with this really pretty, like, just kind of dough ball. We're going to pinch all of these seams together, and then we end up with a smooth side right here, right? Well, now I do not have a banneton, and that's fine. I do have a colander, as you can tell right there, a colander and a tea towel here. This one happens to be a Halloween themed tea towel. No one's gonna know, so it's not a big deal. Well, you guys are gonna know. So all I'm doing is just kind of throwing some flour all around my tea towel just so that the dough does not stick. And then I'm going to place it flat side down, so the smooth side down into this little towel. We're going to cover that up and we're going to let that rest for the next hour. Okay friends, so I have a piece of parchment out and we're just going to very carefully remove our dough. Just going to open this up and she's looking pretty. Okay. Now I'm using a really sharp paring knife. I don't have one of those fancy dough blades, and I'm just gonna brush off a little bit of this flour. Just a little bit. Okay, and we're just gonna score it. That's it. Nothing more complicated than that. That just allows it to vent and release steam. So now, let me move that over just a hair. Shape it perfectly here, the way we want it. Perfect. So now we're going to remove our Dutch oven from the oven and place our bread inside. Okay, so we have to be super careful. I do have this preheated to 450 degrees. All I did was place the covered Dutch oven into the oven itself, and then I turned it on to preheat for 450. So here we go. Let's bring you guys in. Okay. And I'm gonna just carry it carefully, lay it in there. Nice and simple. Actually, that little piece of the parchment kind of got tucked underneath. Let me see if I can fish it out. Okay, put the lid on, and we're gonna bake it for 25 minutes with the lid on. All right, friends, timer's going off, which means it's time to take the lid off. So we're just gonna pull this out a little here. Take that lid off. Oh, she's looking so pretty. Look at that. All right, back into the oven. And now we're gonna bake it for another 15 to 20 minutes, keeping an eye on it. All right, so that's our 15-minute timer. Look at that, that's beautiful. Oh, it sounds perfect. Okay, so we're gonna let it sit here for just 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we're going to remove it and cool it completely.